Dolly Parton singing I'll Be Home for Christmas from her 1990 Dolly Parton Christmas special. 2016 has been quite a year for Dolly. She turned 70, celebrated her 50th wedding anniversary, put out the 7th #1 album of her Hall of Fame career, and was a rock of support for her East Tennessee community during the recent fires there. Dolly's holiday movie, Christmas of Many Colors, aired 2 nights ago on NBC. A good reason for us to make the trip to Dollywood's Dreammore Resort in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, to catch up with an American icon.
I'm just in a really good place right now. All the hard work I've done has allowed so many great things to happen.
Working 9 to 5, what a way to make a living.
It's like I work all the time. That's why somebody says, you never age. I said, when have I got time? I'm too busy.
Busy is the only way Dolly knows how to be. Over a 50-year career, she's sold more than 100 million albums, recorded 25 #1 hits, won 7 Grammys, and been nominated for a couple of Oscars, too. But the big star with her own theme park is never far from the little girl who grew up dirt poor in the Smoky Mountains of East Tennessee. You famously grew up in a little cabin just over a hill over there somewhere with 12 brothers and sisters and your mom and dad. Do you remember what Christmas was like in that home?
Yeah, I do. Mama was always big on making sure we knew what Christmas really was about. So she always told the Christmas story of Jesus and always read. She always big reading on the Bible. And so she would always tell us all those things, but we made our own, a lot of our own toys, and we didn't, in those very early days, we didn't have electricity. So we made our own. Daddy would cut a tree and we'd make our own ornaments and put them on, you know. But it was more than anything about the fun, and Mama was great on making everything fun and putting the magic and everything. She just had a great way about her.
The holidays of her humble childhood are the subject of the NBC TV movie Christmas of Many Colors.
Hear me, Billy. Dolly ain't going to work.
Daddy, please, I love to sing. It's all I want to do.
Is that difficult ever for you to go back and watch some of these, which are tough times in your life, play out on TV?
Yeah, it is. It's really emotional to me. It makes me miss Mom and Daddy more than anything.
It seems to me as a little girl in your family, you didn't necessarily miss the things you didn't have. You made it work with your family.
Yeah, well, all the people living around us were basically like us. We didn't, I always make a joke, we didn't always poor till some smart aleck up and told us. I've often said that. But we didn't, you don't realize it, because we had Mom and Daddy and we felt safe and loved.
Dolly got her start singing in church and playing a homemade guitar for her family. The day after graduating high school, the 18-year-old moved to Nashville to chase her big music dreams. She was doing her laundry at a local laundromat when she met a young man named Carl Dean. This year, Carl and Dolly celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. Dolly's latest album, Pure and Simple, was inspired in part by her relationship with Carl, who ran a paving company and has avoided the spotlight for half a century. Well, your #1 album, Pure and Simple, was based on your 50-year marriage with Carl. Did he get approval on some of those stories going out to the public that you wrote about on the album?
He didn't care. Well, I actually wrote about just love in general. A few of them are based on mine and his relationship, but I tried to cover all the kinds of love in the universe. But I wanted to do I call it my Love of Many Colors album. And it's something for everybody. Just the dating ones, the cheating ones, the secure loves, but love is love, you know.
It's funny because you and Carl, after 50 years, people don't know much about him, except we get little hints about him through the songs.
Yeah.
And that's just the way he likes it.
He doesn't like being in the limelight.
It's kind of impressive, actually, that he, after 50 years, has managed to stay out of that spotlight.
I know. Well, that's because he really does not want to be in it, and I've also respected that privacy and have kept him out of it.
I've noticed, listening to you on stage on this tour and reading some of the interviews you've been doing, you've really been emphasizing dream more, love more, let's care about each other. Is that a reflection of what's going on in the country right now? Are you pushing that message a little harder even?
I am these days, only because I just think, well, my fans have been coming out in droves, and I think a lot of people are just needing something kind of refreshing and just something a little lighthearted, something not so judgmental or so negative.
What a nice welcome. Thank you. Well, I've been wanting to see you too. Like a dream we finally found.
So what's this one here?
Well, actually, this was when I first came to Nashville. I guess it's a couple years after, probably 66, 67, I guess. And that was me probably making one of my first records. But I just love people that are bold enough to get out there and do what they do and do it without fear.
She could be describing herself. Behind the self-deprecation and the Southern charm, Dolly is the bold, fearless head of a business empire. And she took control of her career at a young age. You have from the beginning been a very instinctively great businesswoman. You started the record label, the publishing, all those things as a very young woman. Where does that instinct come from?
That came from my dad. He couldn't read and write, but my daddy was so smart. He could make a business deal like you wouldn't believe. I got my music and my spirituality more from my mom's side of the family, but my smarts, my business sense, and just my take on people, just being able to know what's real and what ain't, I get that from my daddy.
Well, there's instinct and then there's guts, and you've got both. Because as a young woman, I imagine in Nashville, it wasn't easy for you to stand up and say, I'm taking control of all my music.
It wasn't hard for me because I never was intimidated by men. I love men. Me and Will Rogers have that in common. I never met a man I didn't like. Because I have my dad, I was very close to my uncles, my grandpas, and all those brothers of mine, so I understand the nature and the personalities of men. And I always said I look like a woman, but I think like a man. I do. I think a lot like my dad and my brothers. I was always flattered that if men came on to me, but I always knew where to draw that line. I never let it go past that. And so I just always said, I've got something to offer here. We can all make a lot of money. And if it got to where it passed a certain line, I'd just walk away from it thinking I'll go somewhere else with it. But I was fine, you know, with that. I've actually, it served me well being a girl.
At 70 years old and going strong, Dolly is counting her blessings this Christmas.
I don't have time to get old. I don't think of myself as old. I mean, I look at the numbers and I know that but I feel like I'm as active now and doing better now than, than I ever have.
Always one of my favorite people in the world to interview, in case you couldn't tell. Dolly's Christmas of Many Colors is available now on DVD. The area where Dolly was born and raised and where Dollywood sits was hit hard by those fires in East Tennessee, as you know. Dolly and her foundation have promised to donate $1,000 per month for the next 6 months to any family displaced by that fire. Dolly's Christmas traditions have changed a bit since those early days of her family making their own gifts. To hear how Dolly becomes Santa in her own home, check out our web extras at today.com/Sunday.